Hello and welcome to another Home Time Art Challenge with Mrs. White. This week we are going to be talking about and making some of our own op art. Op art is an artistic movement not to be confused with the popular pop art movement, which rhymes perfectly. Op art, on the other hand, is short for optical art, meaning these artists use optical illusions to play tricks on your eyes. So sit back and enjoy. Um, while op art did not begin until the 1960s, it owes a lot to the rules of perspective that were learned back in the Renaissance. So those of you familiar with perspective, my 4th and 5th graders, we know that the things that are closer to the viewer appear bigger, while the things that are further away in the background appear smaller. So that's a basic rule of art where we're trying to make our art look more three-dimensional on a two-dimensional surface. So op art just takes that to an extreme, makes things more abstract, not necessarily a recognizable image, but a really fun trick on your eye. So I want to tell you just a little bit about Miss Bridget Riley, which is one of the most famous op artists out there. Miss Bridget Riley was born in London in the 1930s. She studied art in college, although she began with figures, drawing and painting people. She moved to landscapes, specifically landscapes in pointillism. Those of you that are familiar with George Seurat, the duck guy, you'll know what that is. Then she actually became an art teacher for children for a few years before she started teaching in college. Also went into advertising a little bit. Graphic design makes sense, right? And this was about the time when she started evolving her style to op art. And she was very successful in this, as you're going to see some of my favorite of her paintings. This one, I love how the dots get smaller and it makes it look like they're kind of falling. And then this wave one where your eye just kind of travels around and swirls until it gets lost in the middle. So while op art really started in the 1960s with artists like Bridget Riley, it is actually still very much alive and popular today. 1960s op art was mainly black and white. Now we're starting to see more and more op artists play with different colors and things. So some characteristics or different types of op art include things like movement, hidden images, flashing and vibrating patterns, and swelling or warping. So just a few examples of those real fast before we get started on our own project. First, let's talk about movement. As you've been watching this screen, you may have thought that these circles were moving. You are wrong, they are not. It's just an optical illusion, trick of the eye. So we talk about movement a lot in lots of paintings and drawings, but with op art, it's a little bit more literal, meaning it really does look like it's kind of moving. So if you look at this one, the circles do appear to be moving, not quite as much as the one before us, but if you look kind of towards the center, you see a little bit more of that movement. Closely related, vibration. This one I think is really evident and super cool. It's kind of mind-blowing. If you look at it really close, it's going to look like it's vibrating. Another type of op art is warping op art. This is, spoiler alert, the kind that we're going to be doing today. This one's super cool. Lots of beautiful colors. It uses those lines and colors. One final type of op art is with hidden images. This one's a little bit harder for us to make with regular pencil and paper, but I definitely wanted you guys to see it. This right here happens to be a panda. You may not see it at first glance. I know I didn't. If you kind of look at it from the side, you might catch it, or if I make it a little bit smaller for you, it's much easier to see. So you may see the panda there. If you didn't, now you're seeing it. Mind blown, right? It's the exact same image, just shrunk down. So on to our project. Some of you have done this before. This is kind of known as the straight line, curved line, raised hand trick. Some of you may have seen it like this. You can certainly do the same style where you trace your hand, and then I'm going to show you how to give it that illusion of being raised, or you can do any sort of shape that you might like. So start thinking about what shape you might want to do, and I'm going to show you how to achieve the technique. Let's get started. So what's great about this project is that you can use a variety of materials, meaning you can use colored pencils, crayons, markers, basically anything that makes color. Even you could just use your pencil and use black and white. So let's get started. I decided that instead of doing the traditional hand tracing technique, I wanted to do something a little bit more unique. So I decided to do a heart and make it into a world. You can do something as simple as circles, literally just trace the tops of cups. You can make stars from cookie cutters. The sky is the limit. Use your imagination and get creative. First, you're going to draw with regular pencil your shape. So I did the heart, and then I added the land masses, the continents on there. And then in the background, you're going to do straight lines. So I used my ruler just to make them straight. You don't necessarily have to do that. You can just try to make them as straight as you want to. Or you could go even further and measure to make it super straight. It's kind of however particular you want to be or precise. So after you've done that, then you do curved lines inside of the object that you drew. So mine was my heart, because I also added second set of objects inside of my heart, the land masses. Instead of using curved lines for those, I kind of used zigzag to kind of make a variety there. And then it will be time to color. And now to the fun part. You get to pick which colors you're going to use. My colors kind of seemed obvious since I was doing the earth. I wanted some blues, and I threw some purple in there because of the heart, and some green for the land. Think about which medium you're using. Crayons and colored pencils, remember you want to color light and get nice thin layers before you build it up if you want the darker values. Don't be angry with the colored pencils or the crayons, like Mrs. White always says. Be nice and gentle, make friends with them. Also color in the same direction. You'll notice when I did the lines, I went straight side to side. When I did the heart, I kind of went in the heart shape, rounded shape there. One thing I would have done differently if I could go back is try to match up those edges. So you'll see where my purple part on the heart starts, it lines up with the blue instead of the purple. So going back, I would pay more attention to that. It still ended up looking cool, but if you remember the hand that I showed you, that matched really well, and I think that kind of added to the optical illusion. So anyway, just going back and forth in that pattern. I tried to give a little bit darker value on the edges of my heart just to kind of add to that optical illusion, to make it look more rounded. Typically when we see something that's round, the edges are darker than the part that's coming closer to you, which makes it look more three-dimensional. I also chose to change up my pattern because I had that third shape of the land on there. So I just did the land in greens, dark and light, and the water on the heart in purples and blues. So that made sense for mine. It's going to depend what subject matter you use. I saw some on the internet too where they completely use different colors for the shape versus the background. So really just play around with it. This is one of those things you can do over and over and see how it looks with different medium. You can see how it looks with different shapes, patterns. Just keep having fun with it. So you may have noticed that my pattern got a little off around this point. I think I was just almost done when I was like, oh no, I got off my pattern. But you know what? We don't panic as artists. That's what artists do. The best artists are the artists that make the most mistakes and learn how to fix them, like Mrs. White always says. So what I decided to do was I was like, well, I had the green lines up there in the beginning, so I'll just kind of start some green, and I did a little extra green at the bottom, so it kind of framed it. I think it works. Um, Maybe you didn't even notice, and I just now pointed it out. See? Um, Once I got done coloring it, though, I felt like it still needed that last little bit of craftsmanship that we always talk about. I kind of stood back and looked at it and was like, you know what? I think I could make my border lines a little bit bolder, and that would really make my shape stand out more, kind of add to that optical illusion effect. And so I went back in, and at the bottom of each of those lines, I kind of darkened it. So that the line stood out a little bit more. I also, when I was doing that, caught some of the places where I hadn't colored all the way to the edge, so I fixed that, paying attention to those little details. I went through, and if there was any spots that weren't colored all the way, I kind of tried to clean those up. You can ask for glows and grows at home. It would be awesome if you taught your parents and your siblings what a glow and a grow is. Remember, a glow and a grow is where you ask for one thing they love about your work and one idea that could make it even better. Remember, you don't always have to do that idea. You as the artist get to make those choices, but it's always fun to keep growing and getting cool ideas from other people. Extra eyes, extra opinions, extra inspiration. That's what I always say. All right, so I cannot wait to see what you guys come up with for this. I am so excited. I think it's going to be super fun. Don't forget to upload it to Artsonia so you can be entered into that drawing and so that we can be inspired by your work. Have a great week, and I'll be back Wednesday or Thursday with another op art challenge. Bye.